Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of the MEA's 2021 virtual conference. Today's our final day. We have a session just for the morning. My name is Dan Cozy. I'm the Executive Director of the Municipal Engineers Association, and I have the pleasure of being your moderator today. Just a little bit of background information about myself. You could call me a lifer municipal engineer. I've spent 32 years working in the municipal sector, primarily with the town of Oakville. I even spent some time with the city of Burlington in my younger days. I even spent 4 summer work terms with the city of Hamilton in their engineering department prior to my graduation from McMaster in 1987. So all in all, I've had about 38 years of experience in the municipal sector, doing all the types of things that you likely all do. But primarily I was involved in the design and construction of infrastructure projects from sewer, roads, bridges, water resource projects. And I thoroughly enjoyed that. One thing about us municipal engineers is we deliver services, we deliver hard infrastructure to people that use them. And every opportunity I get, I'd like to take a drive around my old stomping grounds in Oakville, and I like to look at the projects that I was involved with 10 years ago, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. And it's very satisfying to see the work that I was involved with and that people are still using it. I am also a past board member of the MEA from 2010 to 2016. And I served as the MEA's president in 2014. Today's agenda is fairly brief. We have 2 presentations and then, 3 presentations. I'll be doing the 3rd one. From there, we're going to wrap up and move into our AGM. Now, I do want to tell those folks that will be joining us for the AGM, as a MEA member, you can participate. If you're already logged on to this session today, you should see a button on your attendee hub that says Join AGM. And so that will start at approximately 11 o'clock. So you need to select that in order to participate in the AGM. So we'll give you a reminder of that before we get to that point. I also want to note that all the presentations today and yesterday and on Monday will ultimately be loaded onto the MEA's website. So you can always return and take a look at a presentation on your own time. In addition, my understanding is that as a registered delegate to the conference, you'll have access to the attendee hub for a period of time after the conference where you could actually access, I believe, a recording of the sessions. So if you were not able to participate fully on a particular day, you can always go back and take a look at what you missed. So I'd encourage you to do so. As we have presenters today, I encourage you to ask questions. The way you do that is you just click the Q&A button on the the top right-hand side of your screen. You don't have to wait till the end of the presentation to ask a question. Sometimes it's difficult for us to queue in all the questions because we're waiting for them to come in. So if you have a question that comes up partway through the presentation, type it in as soon as you know what your question is, and that'll give us a better chance of ensuring we can get to it. I also want to remind you all that anyone that's joined in today or yesterday or this past Monday will receive a certificate by email denoting the professional development hours. And this could be helpful if you're logging, for example, into peak training hours through the PEO. So just wanted to make you aware of that. I want to mention that without corporate sponsors, it makes it more difficult for nonprofit associations like the MEA to put on events like we're putting on today. And so I want to thank all our sponsors. We had a number of sponsors participate in our sponsorship program this year. I want to, we had 4 levels, gold, silver, bronze, and platinum. I want to just announce the gold sponsors first, if I may. Tridel Homes, Tatham Engineering, Geranium Homes, Walker Construction, and Marianneville Developments. Thank you to our gold sponsors. Very much appreciated. And today's platinum sponsor is Bilterra, and we thank them for their sponsorship. And we're going to play a short video from Bilterra. Oh, I'm being told that the video never came in. So let's just acknowledge Bilterra, thank them for their generous platinum sponsorship. And as a reminder, at any point during the day or later on today, you can visit the virtual booths you'll see how to do that through the homepage on the attendee hub. I encourage you to do that. We have a number of virtual booths there. You can get information from each of the vendors that are there. You can even schedule a meeting with them if you like. So thanks again to our sponsors. Let's move on to our presentations this morning. The first presentation is called City of Guelph Snow Disposal Facility. And the speaker is Prasoon Adhikari. Prasoon is a supervisor of environmental engineering with the City of Guelph and a professional engineer in the province of Ontario with over 16 years of experience in civil and environmental engineering. Prasoon has been involved in environmental remediation and assessments, design and management of groundwater and remedial treatment systems, sewage pumping stations, and snow disposal facility. Treatment remediation alternative studies, construction oversight, and environmental projects, including Superfund sites. Prasoon has an extensive experience in drafting policies related to contaminated sites and the excess soil regulation for the City of Guelph. Certainly a well-qualified individual. Prasoon, we're so happy to have you here this morning. And I turn the mic over to you and start sharing your screen and put on your presentation. Thank you, Prasoon. Are you able to share your screen, Prasoon?
Yeah, I'm working on it. Just give me.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay, we can see your screen, Prasoon, so.
Okay, I'm just trying to see.
I think you just want to click slideshow.
Yep, I am trying to do that.
There you go. There you go.
Alrighty. Thank you, Dan. Thank you very much for that kind introduction. Hi, folks. Good morning. My name is Prasoon Adhikari. I'm with the City of Guelph, and I'm very thankful to MEA for giving me this opportunity to talk about City of Guelph snow disposal facility as to how it went from basically a historical landfill site or a historical dump to the state-of-the-art and award-winning snow disposal facility. So for some of us who doesn't know where the City of Guelph is located, it is located in Southern Ontario, about 100 kilometers west of Toronto. And on average, we receive 160 centimeters of snow, which is 5 feet of snow annually. And most of the snow that require disposal is collected from downtown area and areas where we do not have sufficient space to have long-term storage for snow. And that amounts to anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 truckloads of snow on any given year. So what was the objective of this project, right? So when we started this project, we wanted to make sure that we were designing and constructing safe, secure, operationally efficient facility. We wanted to make sure that we're protecting and enhancing natural environment. Obviously, we wanted to comply with all the rules and regulations, including implementing all the PMPs. Minimize social impacts. Innovation was a big thing for us when we started designing this project. And obviously, not to mention alternative use of the site, sustainability and resiliency was always at the back of our mind as well. So basically, going forward, I'll be touching upon site selections, pre-design studies, design work that we did, permitting and construction work, and monitoring and maintenance work. Alrighty then, so site selections, right? So right off the bat, we had 3 city-owned properties that we thought could be our next snow disposal facility, and we made sure that this would work for us. There was a mandate that we're not going to go and buy property outside of city limit or buy any private property for our snow disposal facility. So we had identified three facilities that was owned by city, and we evaluated them against these matrices. First being social impact, environmental impact, cost obviously being one of the bigger issues. Source water protection, just so you folks know, City of Guelph is the only, I think it's the only municipality that relies 100% for its drinking water surface from groundwater. We just want to make sure that alternate use of the site, we had identified the alternative use of the site for site during site selection as well, because we didn't want our snow disposal facility to be just a snow disposal facility. And available area obviously was a bigger thing, a bigger factor in site selection of the properties. Site security, accessibility, and end use of the property, and not to mention ease of permitting to construct the facility. So the site history, just want to let you know that we decided that we would go with the existing snow disposal facility, which was basically a historical dump where we used to store snow and ditching material from city operations, as well as there were number of illegal dumping happening at the site. So we used that opportunity to develop our snow disposal facility. So basically, illegal dumping of soil and material deposition from city operation, on any annual basis, we got anywhere from 400 tons of fill material annually. So this was a challenge for us, because we wanted to make sure that we're taking care of the site that was already being used as a snow disposal facility. We want to make sure that we're taking care of the environmental and ecological aspect of the site as well. Hence, we took this as a challenge and decided this is the appropriate site for us to develop into our future and new snow disposal facility. Alrighty, so as far as pre-design studies goes, we had completed phase 1 environmental site assessment, phase 2 environmental site assessment, environmental risk evaluation. The purpose of this risk evaluation was that we wanted to make sure that all the material that was on site, we would have wanted to use all that material on site. We didn't want to haul off any offsite by taking care of all the excess soil materials on site. Conceptual source water protection assessment. Basically, this is a very important site, policy for us, because, like I said, city does rely on groundwater for its drinking water purposes. So this was a pretty significant assessment that we undertook. We did undertake environmental impact study as well. So and geotechnical investigation and stormwater management plan. We didn't realize going right off the bat that we needed any planning application for this project. Just so you know that this project lies in city of, Guelph-Hermosa Township. 2/3 of the city portion lies in Guelph-Hermosa Township, and 1/3 is in the city of Guelph, albeit entire property is owned by city of Guelph. So we're made to go through bylaw amendment, zoning bylaw amendment, and that prompted us to do noise impact study All righty. So what where the project outside is, and like I said earlier, 2/3 of the site is located in Guelph Hermosa townships right here, and 1/3, this portion right here, lies in city of Guelph. Cross municipal boundaries was a challenge right off the bat. The site is located in highly vulnerable aquifer. Again, this is where the source water protection policies come into play. There is existing provincially significant wetlands with species at risk along the eastern portion of the site. There are existing residential properties to the west and southwest of the site, and not to mention all the legacy environmental impacts with ditching materials, street sweepings, and all the materials that we've gotten over the years through illegal dumping throughout the site. So our design goal was to make sure that we were taking care of current snow volume as well as anticipated snow volumes. We wanted to make sure that we were removing or diluting or biodegrading any contaminants that came along with the snow and street sweepings. We want to make sure that traffic circulation in and out of the site was good enough, minimize the impact to nearby receptors. By receptors, we're not just meaning human receptors, we're also talking about ecological receptors as well. Obviously, sustainability and resiliency were pretty significant portion of our design goals, and not to mention the alternative use of the site. So let me start off with the right-hand side of the slide here and go towards the left. So as you can see, this is the access road that led to the site. Basically, this was not was basically a dirt road. We made sure that this was paved. It's not shown here in the picture, but there used to be a undersized culvert here, which did take into significant amount of storm water from the area above, and it has a pretty steep slope. The channel has a pretty steep slope, so at that times the water didn't just overtop the culvert, but it did, completely wash out the culvert. So we wanted to make sure that we're taking care of that, which we did as part of this work. And again, this is the access road, as you can see, to the pad. So basically, this is the snow disposal pad, which is about 1.8 hectare in size, has a gentle slope of 1.5% towards the eastern side of the site where we have the swell. So basically, water flows towards the eastern portion. It hits the level spreader. Any debris or litter gets collected right at the level spreader, and rest of the water, it flows to the vegetated swell right here, as you can see, and then that gets collected through the storm pipe, which then discharges to all grid separator, and finally discharges to the forebay of the wet pond, enhanced level wet pond, which is designed for 100 years rain event. If there is any event more than 100 years, then there is a concrete mat right here that carries the water to this area, which where we have significant area for water to stay until it drains on its own. So the outlet of the pipe basically is a perforated pipe. We wanted to make sure that there was no clogging happening at the outlet structures. Also wanted to make sure that the water column, the entire water column was draining, so that we didn't have any temperature issue with the outlet water. And obviously this, and we also have a valve here, basically a valve with valve that can completely shut down, completely isolate the pond in case there is a spill or we have to clean up the pond and things along those lines. So the water then eventually is discharged to the wetland here. We do have riprap and some vegetated area here, so that erosion is minimal. As you can see right here on top of the picture here, this is a screening berm. It's pretty significant in height. This was done obviously for visual screening, but it does somewhat help with noise mitigation as well. Alrighty, so this is what the site looked like when we initially started project, and this is what it looked like once the project was done. And with this slide, I want to talk to you folks about what kind of sustainable construction we completed at the site. So in order for us to construct this facility, we reused approximately 32 cubic meter of excess soil generated as part of the project, as well as 7,000 cubic meter of soil from nearby development. The sub base of the asphalt pad and access road, and basically this is asphalt and this is the access road right here. We reused 3,500 cubic meters of recycled concrete and 1,000 cubic meter of recycled asphalt that were already present at the site. So in doing so, we made sure that we're not getting any additional truckloads coming to our facility, thereby reducing the carbon footprint of our construction, and not to mention it did help us with the reduce the project cost as well. With this picture, I just wanted to give you a little idea as to what the site looked before and what it is right now. You can see this is the culvert that I was talking to you guys about, and this is what it looks right now. And you can see the security fence with the gate at the background here. This is where the stormwater management pond is located. You can see this is looking towards the south side, and this is towards the north side of the site. You can see how it looks after the construction was over. Well, with any new structure, right, infrastructure comes monitoring and maintenance. So in order for us to install and operate stormwater management pond, we had to apply for ECA, and with ECA comes requirements, mandatory requirements. In this case, it happens to be stormwater management operation manual, spill contingency and pollution plan, operation and maintenance plan, and swim pond effluent monitoring and recording and reporting. Basically, we're reporting on I think it is heavy metal, some heavy metal parameters, some inorganics, pH, and total coliforms. And like I said earlier, the site straddles Guelph, Hermosa Township, and City of Guelph, which both these municipalities have source of protection policies. So in addition, for us to meet the ECA requirement, we had to meet the risk management plan prepared for this site, which is basically a source water protection requirement. And as part of that, in addition to ECA requirement, we have to report groundwater and surface water monitoring to Guelph Hermosa Township risk management official, as well as City of Guelph risk management official. So we just wanted to make sure that, you know, we didn't want our facility to just look like a very engineered facility. So we did put some effort in, you know, upgrading our ecological habitat as well. So we did plant hundreds of native trees and shrubs, salt tolerant plants, pollinator friendly vegetation, nesting housing for songbirds, bad rooster structures, among others. Well, the City of Guelph has a net zero carbon goal to help combat climate change. So with that in mind, we did install net meter solar panel. On average, it does offset 10,000 kgs of carbon dioxide, which is 10 tons of carbon dioxide emission annually. And that amounts to equivalent, you know, amounts to 300 plus trees planting on an annual basis. And this data is from, say, Q1 of 2019 to Q1 of 2020, and not to mention, you know, we felt the need to have an all-weather weather station at the site as well. So what was the outcome of the project? Obviously, we did take historical dump and turn it into a state-of-the-art snow disposal facility. We did enhance ecological habitat of the area of the site. During construction, we did reduce our carbon footprint, and we have alternative use for the site. So we will be using site for temporary storage of street sweepings, leaves, excess soils. We are also in the midst of applying for ECA so that we can store liquid sediment from stormwater management pond, if that is what is required for sedimentary use. And not to mention, we've already had few training already happening at the site. I think it was late spring, early summer. There was a training by our emergency service vehicle operators at the site. Well, and last but not the least, it's always good to get some award for the project that you put so much time and effort into. So we did win a couple of awards. Ontario Public Works Association award for under environmental category, Association of Consulting Engineering Companies award of merit under municipal infrastructure. So, and these are good things that happened to this project, because like I said, we did put in lots of effort into this. And not to mention that at the end of the day, I get to, at the ribbon cutting ceremony, I get to mingle with the mayor, the council, and the powers that be at the city of Guelph, so which was not bad either. Alrighty, so this is a video that I just wanted to show you. It basically is a compilation of pictures taken at different point of time during construction, and I think, in my opinion, it does have a cool music to it. So here you go. Alrighty, so this is what our site looks like right now. So as you can see, like I said, this is the pad, and 1.8 hectare pad. You can see solar panels here, trailer right here. This is the stormwater facility. This is where the additional water could be stored if need be. These are the access road. It's kind of hidden from residential properties and other properties. So it's a really good facility. And that ends my presentation. So the quick thing I'd like to tell you folks is, if you have any question and you want to talk to me in detail about what were some of the challenges and lessons learned from this project, you can reach out to me, directly offline, or if you have any question, then I'm happy to answer right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Prasoon. That was a very interesting presentation. I must tell you, that brings back great memories for me as former Director of Roads and Works Operations at the town of Oakville. I must admit, that is one awesome snow storage dump facility. Certainly much nicer than what we had. And we had a pretty good facility back in the day, but that is something really special. I do have some questions that I'd like to ask you, just to sort of get the ball rolling before we go out to the audience. You did make reference of area residents in the sort of the southwest area, and there's also a community to the west. Was there any significant opposition? I mean, I imagine it certainly improved the situation compared to what it was, but was there any opposition from the residents in the area?
Well, there was, right? So like I said already in my slide, we didn't expect that we would have to go through a zoning bylaw amendment for this site. Like I said, this significant portion of the site is in Guelph-Hermosa Township. So all this area right here, right? This area right here up to this point is in Guelph-Hermosa Township. So Guelph-Hermosa Township made us go through that zoning bylaw amendment process. So as part of that, right, our project got delayed by almost a year and a half. This property right here, you can see this not developed, but this is slated for some kind of residential development. This property owner had something to say about the site. This our snow disposal could be an eyesore for future development. So yeah, there were challenges. Like that's why we had to do noise assessment as well as outdoor lightning assessment, just to appease the gentleman there.
Okay, my next question is, and I'm sorry if I missed it during your presentation, but what else is this facility used for in the non-winter months? I mean, do you have a leaf collection program? Do you store your leaves?
Yeah,
leaf there?
Yeah, we have like right now, this is the area, this pretty much, this is the area where we put all our snow, but this entire remaining area, we do use it for like a collection of any leaves from throughout the city of Guelph, as well as street sweepings, right? We put street sweeping throughout the year, and at the end of the year or early in the following year, when we have enough volume of street sweepings, we contract out for it to be disposed off site. And like I said, we will be using this site at one point of time, hopefully for excess oil storage as well. And we are also we will be using this site obviously for soil generated during emergency repair work of infrastructures. And we are also, like I said, we are also working on the ECA to make sure that if push came to shove, we can use this site to store sediment from stormwater management pond so that it can be dried here, because like you said, the site is equipped with treatment trains, right? So this would be ideal site for us to do that.
Thank you. And my last question is a two-parter. I did see that about the award, and it was in the $2 to $15 million cost category. But are you able to tell us what the overall cost was of this project? And the second part of that question is, was the construction completed in one season, or did it overlap a couple of years?
The cost is about $5 million design and construction, fairly close to $5 million. Sorry, fairly close to $5 million. Yes, it was completed in one season. However, right, there were certain things that we had to do the following year, like planting and all that stuff had to be done. Some of the plantings had to be done the following, late spring. So otherwise, most of the construction work was done by it started, back end of in 2018, kind of, right? That was just clearing and grubbing, and in 2019 March, we started construction. It was done by mid-December of 2019. Okay,
Prasoon, thank you. We have yesterday's moderator, Amanda Froese, behind the scenes, not behind the seas. And she's checking for questions. Do we have any questions from the audience, Amanda?
We do, Dan. We have 4 or 5 here already. So the first question is from Rosalind Lusk. She wants to acknowledge that it's good to see you, Prasoon, and that you did a great presentation. She's wondering if you can let us know what water quality parameters are you monitoring in the effluent and runoff?
Basically, the requirement by ECA is heavy metals, some inorganics like nitrates, I think some chlorides and stuff like that, as well as heavy metals, inorganics, and pH and total coliforms, right? If there are any fecal matters or anything like that, I think that is the requirement for the outfall. And like for part of risk management plan, we'll be doing again heavy metals, some other parameters in our groundwater and surface water there, along the outlet. So those are the parameters. And yeah, I think that's about it.
Thank you. Benjamin DeHaan asks, again, he says it's an interesting presentation, and he asks, I'm curious what the city treatment plan is if it detects exceedances in the pond stormwater management quality. For example, what do you do if heavy metals are too high?
Very good question, right? So that is what we're trying to avoid, because if we detect lots of that, then we'll have to think about that. Maybe we go back to ministry and have that discussion with ministry before we can do anything. So if we were to see lots of heavy metals, say down the road, then maybe one option would be to clean up the pond and see if it's functioning properly or not. But one thing that I would like to draw your attention to is this is the catchment of the site is basically catchment of the swim facility is basically the site, and since it's wet pond, and with forebay and all that, we are hoping that most of the heavy metals that is laden with sediments do settle down, and we do monitor for those parameters. So, like if that ever happened, then we'll have to, like right off the bat, I can think that we may have to clean the pond, or we may have to talk to ministry and come up with some other plans. But so far, we've already done about a year worth of monitoring and reporting, and we have not found anything that is troublesome for us for now, at least.
Thank you. The next one is again from Rosalind Lusk, and wondering if you allow private contractors to dump snow on the pad.
No, that was one of the major reasons where we never had control over. Hence, we wanted to make sure that the entire site was secure. As you can see, fencing all around the site, and this is only meant for cities operations, not meant for private operation. At least that is the intention for now, but and I hope we stick to that.
Thank you. David Thompson asks, how long did it take to get all of the approvals in place before construction could start?
You know what approval you mean? If you're talking about the zoning bylaw amendment, then that did take us a long time, and it was what it was. That delayed our project, like I said, a year and a half. We're talking to ministry to get we had a pre-con for stormwater management facility that went really well. So ministry did tell us that since this site is located in a vulnerable aquifer, they wanted to make sure that we're not infiltrating any water at the pad location. So pad has geosynthetic clay liner and sub drainage, which geosynthetic clay liner is equivalent to 3 feet of clay material, really well compacted clay material, and all that. So GRC was very helpful as well because of the significant wetland located just east of the property. So permission itself was not a big deal, other than the zoning bylaw amendment. It was that was something we had never anticipated. But you know what, we're done with it, and I don't want to think about that right now.
Thank you. Our last question is from Stuart West. He says, it looks like the site discharges stormwater to a water course. Did the Conservation Authority review the stormwater management proposed? And specifically, were there additional requirements or considerations to high salt levels?
Yes, again, we did bring in, when we had a pre-con meeting, we did bring in GRCS folks as well as ministry folks. So this was nothing, like this was a straightforward, pre-con, and they were happy that we're doing the best we can, right? Like you said, there is no treatment solution for dissolved salt, even in our wastewater treatment plant and most of the conventional wastewater treatment system. So what we're doing here is making sure this is a wet pond. There is a sufficient, permanent pool level. And as you know, some water with dissolved salt would be at the bottom of the pond, so to speak, right? So any water that is leaving the site is likely with the least amount of salt in it. So that's what we are hoping for, and that's how we designed the pond, and that's how the pond has been operating so far. So again, like I said, we're monitoring for inorganic parameters that includes sodium and nitrous and all that stuff. So far so good, and since we got the ECA approval and everything, so that speaks volume as far as how good of a job that we intended to do, and how good of a job the pond has been doing so far. And one more thing is that since it goes through lots of treatment trains, right? Like you can see, there is, like you said, there's 1.5% slope towards this side, which is the east side of the property, and there's a level spreader, there's a vegetated swell, where there is chance if there are any unmelted rock salts or anything that can be collected here, then goes to the oil grade separator that is located somewhere here, and then through the fore base. So we're hoping that this pond functions as it was meant and it was designed and constructed for, right?
Thank you. I have one question myself. When it comes to the salt and your bioswale filter system, is that an infiltrating filter strip before it gets to the pond, or no? So it's just for the vegetation?
Yeah, like I said, because of source water protection policy, ministry told us you're not infiltrating anything. I know we can argue about that because eventually it'll go over here, to the outlet here, and there could be some issue down the road. But right now, everybody's happy, including regulators are happy that we've done everything we can with all the design techniques and, like our thought process as to how the water should look like and the things that we're monitoring. We're fairly confident that this will work in the long term as well as in the short term.
Thank you very much. And those are all the questions that we have pending right now. Thanks, Dan.
Thank you, Amanda, for checking the questions for us behind the scenes. Appreciate it. Prasoon, that was a fantastic presentation. If there was a prize for the most questions generated after a presentation so far, I think you would get it. It certainly sparked a lot of questions from the audience. So on behalf of the MEA, we want to thank you for taking the time to put this wonderful presentation together for us. And as a token of our appreciation, we will be sending you a digital gift certificate in the coming days. So keep an eye open for that. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Dan. And thank you, MEA, for the opportunity. Thank you.
So we'll just give Prasoon a moment to log off the screen before we move into the next presentation. We're right on track. In fact, we're about 3 minutes early, which is great. Our next presentation this morning is entitled Integrating Climate Change and Asset Management, Planning's Sector-Wide Considerations. We have two presenters this morning, except I believe one of them is not able to make it, but I will introduce both and read a biography on both. Sam Sadawi, who is someone I've known for a long time, a colleague of mine over the years, is the Director of Enterprise Asset Management for the region of Peel and the Chair of Board of Directors for Asset Management Ontario. Sam is an experienced asset manager and professional engineer who has participated on several committees, including OMBI, Ontario Public Works Association, and National Research Council. Currently is a member of the ISO 55,000 Mirror Committee and was a member of the expert panel that assisted the province in the development of Ontario Regulation 58817. Sam got called into a meeting, I guess, by some important people at where he works. So unfortunately, he's not here, but Chris is here. And Chris Chen is the Executive Director of Asset Management Ontario. He served previously as a municipal treasurer and deputy treasurer, and also spent 12 years at the Ontario government. With the province, Chris helped to develop the asset management planning regulation for municipal infrastructure, and he serves on the technical working group for the Federation of Canadian Municipalities Municipal Asset Management Program. And as a member of MFOA's Accounting and Finance Reporting Committee, and on the Climate Risk Institute's ROIT Steering Committee. Chris, it's our pleasure to have you here this morning. Thank you for taking the time. I hand over the podium to you to make your presentation.
Thank you very much, Dan, and thank you to everyone attending the 61st Annual MEA Conference. We're really honored to be here. We wanted to congratulate MEA for six decades of service and important contributions to the municipal sector. My co-presenter, Sam Sadawi, is a professional engineer and a longstanding member of MEA, and AM Ontario is proud to be partners with the Municipal Engineers Association. So one of the things that really we're focused on today is talking about, or is going to be about recognizing that the municipal sector is at a transformative moment. And what that's about is recognizing global efforts to address climate change and how municipalities are trying to translate commitments into effective action, and what we're seeing on a sector-wide level. A little bit about Asset Management Ontario and our vantage point. We're a community of practice, we're a nonprofit, and we're a center of excellence for infrastructure asset management. And our mission is to strengthen asset management capacity across the public sector. And there's a couple of things that distinguish us. We're grassroots in terms of all of our members are municipal practitioners. And the second thing is we're very multidisciplinary. Engineers, public works people, corporate asset managers, finance people, planners, and so forth. Increasingly, however, and we work with over 100 municipalities, actively work with over 100 municipalities across the province, so about a quarter of the province. Increasingly, our work is focused on helping municipalities integrate climate change considerations into their asset management programs. And we're at a transformative moment because climate change has become like a foundational principle or an organizing principle for municipalities. So just as you would assume that municipalities have financial sustainability as a pillar of their operations, increasingly considerations around environmental impacts and climate change are becoming elevated in importance, certainly much more so than they were several years ago. And the audience surely is aware of the COP26 aim to reduce greenhouse gas emissions on a global basis by 50% over the next 9 years and to reach net zero within the next 3 decades. And that's needed to limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius. That's extremely ambitious. And just for context, because this is going to matter for municipalities, for context, over the past 15 years, from 2005 to 2019, Canada reduced its greenhouse gas emissions by 1.1%. The federal government is proposing to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 40 to 45% within the next 9 years. So why does this matter to municipalities? Well, for one thing, for that to happen, there's going to need to be transformational changes in the way that we do business. And there will also be increased stressors to adapting to a changing climate. I don't need to necessarily tell you this, but because you know this and you live this, but municipalities are the stewards of the majority of public infrastructure across Canada. And so municipalities are very much going to be on the front lines of this change. So the challenge is really to translate the climate commitments and the goodwill, the goodwill intent to do something into effective action. Right now, there are 60 municipalities across the province that have declared a climate emergency. There are many more, probably in the hundreds, that address the importance of climate impacts in their strategic plans. But based on our work and what we're aware of, we're not aware of any municipality that has comprehensively assessed the cost and scope of the long-range plans needed to meet these commitments. And part of the challenge is that the sector lacks integrated evidence-based decision-making resources and knowledge to facilitate the ambitious climate change mitigation and adaptation outcomes that are needed. So one thing to ask as part of this conversation is, what do the regulations say? Well, many of you are familiar, you live with sort of meeting regulations like OREG 58817. That's the Asset Management Planning for Municipal Infrastructure Regulation. And the regulation just mentions a commitment to consider climate change on impacts on infrastructure, as opposed to harder or more concrete and specific requirements. And this section about climate change is only on the section on policy, the strategic asset management policy, as opposed to the asset management plans. So that's sort of some of the backdrop of at least provincially. And in order to address climate change, municipalities need to adopt a strategic view about their climate hazards and opportunities. There's really, that itself seems very obvious, but there's really two parts of this that are quite important. The first is the need to prioritize which climate hazards and which services to focus on. Otherwise, the task can be overwhelming. The second thing to be cognizant of is if municipalities truly embrace the climate change challenge that's laid out at places like COP26, it's important to be cognizant about addressing, it's important to be cognizant that municipal engineers will need to involve other people in their deliberations and how they involve other people in their deliberations. So that entails, for example, closer and earlier collaboration with planners, scientists, people in operations and maintenance, for example. And but the way in which engineers can engage others is by recognizing that climate change and asset management, the frameworks for addressing both, are very complementary and share a lot of commonalities. And in order to sort of leverage or facilitate better outcomes, it's important to recognize the commonalities, some of the common phases. These include the way that we identify service areas and levels of service for particular associated with particular asset classes, and the way that we identify certain climate hazards, the way that we assess gaps between your current and target levels of service, as well as the way you assess climate risks and their potential impacts, the way that you prioritize your actions, just the way that you allocate some of your scarce resources, and going through this process of continuous improvement. And the municipalities that have been most successful with this, at least at the start, have been the municipalities that have recognized the complementarity of climate change planning or climate change preparedness and asset management planning. There is an opportunity, and by taking a kind of a coordinated or integrated framework in addressing climate change and asset management, you're creating a bit of a line of sight in terms of being better positioned to address various climate-related reporting requirements in a coherent way. And this slide contains some examples. So not just with asset management with OREC 58817, but with some of your financial plans, for example, under the Safe Drinking Water Act, that's OREC 45307, your GHG emissions reporting, and other kinds of master plans for various services and infrastructure. Too often, some of these things are done in silos, and there are missed opportunities. So that's this way of integrating climate change and asset management really encourages and facilitates that. So leadership is crucial in mainstreaming an integrated approach. And I think a lot of this is about recognizing that climate risks are an opportunity to look at options more creatively, such as considering when green infrastructure solutions that can offer multiple benefits can be used. It's important to focus on, in our experience in terms of what we've observed in the field, it's important to focus on decision-making systems and just the way that processes can become routine. Good processes and effective practices can become routine. And that's really the basis for the integrated approach. I'll kind of give you an example, because when people talk about leadership, and it's sort of like, yeah, we all get that, but it's more enlightening to see this in practice. So we'll follow this up with a kind of a short case example. And the one that I have here is based in the city of Toronto. It's in what's called the Fairford Avenue Parquet. For people who know the city of Toronto, it's in the Coxwell and Gerrard Street East area. And the basic issue was that if you look at that horizontal line, that's Fairfield Avenue, people were blasting along that road. And if you look at the intersection of Fairfield Avenue and Coxwell Avenue, you'll notice that there's a diagonal that goes onto Gerrard Street East. And basically, it created all sorts of safety issues for vehicle drivers as well as for pedestrians. People used to kind of go down Fairfield Avenue and just take pretty fast right turns, and there's potential for accidents for people coming from Gerrard Street East. So the city of Toronto's express goal back in 2014 was to improve traffic operations and pedestrian safety. So the area that's encircled in red is about 300 square meters of concrete. And so what the City of Toronto decided to do was to among other things, they made a curb extension where you see that red circle in order to slow down the traffic and make it easier for pedestrians to cross. But in doing so, they used that as an opportunity. And this is where the leadership came in. They used this as an opportunity to say, how can we do this more creatively? What else can we do here? And so they looked at a lot of their stormwater management issues. Like they incorporated low impact development design principles for more sustainable stormwater management. And they looked at how they could use green infrastructure to improve the ways that stormwater could be infiltrated, reused, and evapotranspired. So this is kind of, this next slide is kind of what that looks like. And it's basically a rain garden with a bioretention basin. And so this used to be all concrete before. But so what you have here is an example where the city is realizing some co-benefits. There's a curb extension for increased pedestrian and traffic safety. There's better stormwater management through green infrastructure, the rain garden. And you have an enhanced community experience. So those are native flowers that they plant. They really blossom at different parts of the season. And there are benches there. It's a place that has much more of a community feel now. If you're wondering and you're thinking like, oh, City of Toronto's got all this money and we don't. Well, the budget for this was $350,000 and that was in 2014. When you account for inflation, that's about $410,000 in 2021 dollars. And so, but what is interesting about the City of Toronto's approach, and that's relevant for other municipalities, is that they use this kind of as a microcosm, and then they can scale it up. They use it in other parkettes across the city. That's kind of the kind of lessons learned for this. So it's not always going to be smooth sailing. There will be ambiguity. Municipalities are not always going to have all the information they need to make the right adaptation or mitigation choices. And that's fine. And I think that the point about raising the Fairfield Avenue Parkette example is that it's okay to start small, to learn from that, and then to scale it, because it's a continuous improvement kind of effort. Just even looking at that Toronto example, I mean, it took a little bit longer than what they anticipated because that kind of project required expertise from different kinds of people: landscape architects, water resource engineers, people who had expertise in low impact development. And so by collaborating well and working together, city staff were able to work through, there were gaps in information, processes, and skill sets, but they were able to work through that to make this project a reality and to come to some very successful outcomes. So I think if there is a kind of a larger lesson learned, it's not just about the hard solutions. It's what we're really seeing on the ground and across the sector are more integrated, multifaceted systems approaches to addressing climate change. It is a transformational task, and there are resources to support municipalities, including from Asset Management Ontario. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Chris. That was an interesting presentation. Appreciate your time and effort. Yeah, I'd like to start off the process by asking you a few questions, if I may, and that'll give our audience an opportunity to think about any other questions they may want to ask, and we'll get to those in a few minutes. First question is, how does a municipality get started on integrating climate change and asset management?
The first thing to do is most municipalities, as part of their strategic asset management policies, have designated steering committees. They've got, and typically these are cross-disciplinary. But if a municipality is serious about addressing climate change as part of the asset management process, it's important to identify people within the organization who have that kind of expertise. So that probably would include some planners or environmental people. For smaller municipalities that may not necessarily have those kinds of specialists, sometimes they have shared resources that they can rely on at an upper tier level. Sometimes they need to really be more creative and start incorporating some of the people on the operations and maintenance side. So that's one of the key things to do. And then the second key thing to do would be to look at your levels of service for the different kinds of services that you provide and see whether it makes sense to incorporate climate considerations as part of those service levels.
Thank you, Chris. My next question is, should a municipality focus more on climate mitigation versus climate adaptation?
That's a really good question. And I think a lot of the public focus or discussion is around mitigation. How do we reduce greenhouse gases? I think realistically, but what we know is that among municipalities, the largest drivers of GHGs are transportation, buildings, and waste management. And I think what you typically find, and I'm speaking generalities here, is that the larger cities probably have more capacity to focus on that. I think for a lot of the smaller and perhaps more mid-sized municipalities, the more immediate thing is recognizing issues around how do you increase or build up your climate resilience through your infrastructure related services. So I think that's probably the adaptation piece is probably where a lot of municipalities are probably going to be focusing on first.
Thank you, Chris. And my final question before we open it up to the audience is, for smaller municipalities with, that have fewer resources, what are some helpful resources they could use?
The Environment and Climate Change Canada has a group called the Canadian Centre for Climate Services. I will put this in the chat. The Canadian Centre for Climate Services has a climate portal that is very, very useful. And in particular, there's a site called climatedata.ca, which allows you to kind of focus in on sort of getting some basic climate data for your specific area, and that you can start incorporating into, for example, some life cycle management of assets or some of those kinds of determinations. Another resource that's actually also very, very good is Federation Canadian Municipalities has an asset management resource library. They're actively building it up, and they have quite a good climate change and asset management section with some really quality primers and guides. And I will put those into the chat. I will put those in the chat momentarily.
There you go. I see it. Maybe you can just leave that on somehow while I ask Amanda in the background to advise us if there's any other questions from the audience.
Sure, and thanks, Dan. I have one question from Sadir Rahman, who would like to know how AM Ontario, so AM Ontario, is supporting Ontario municipalities to implement their asset management initiatives, including challenges for climate impacts.
Thank you, Amanda. And just a quick note on our acronym. We've been and this actually helps answer the question, but we provide capacity building and technical assistance on asset management. We have our own program, but we also do this on behalf of AMO. So this is where the whole acronym thing gets a little bit messy, because AIM Ontario are very, very similar. And AMO stands for the Association of Municipalities of Ontario. So what we do is, we don't necessarily call this training, but what we do is we've developed a comprehensive curriculum on asset management. And we kind of work with municipalities on that. We try to take a community of practice approach, which means that some experienced practitioners actually kind of lead this. And we work with municipalities using their own data and doing things like identifying gaps in their asset inventories and linking that to a line of sight for their service to asset hierarchies or prioritized decision making, helping them set their levels of service, both community and technical levels of service, and implementing or designing their enterprise risk management systems. So those are examples of things that we do. What we are doing right now on the climate side is we're looking at everything we do and looking at it from a climate change and green infrastructure lens to see how we can sort of integrate or embed that into the asset management part. But thank you for the question. Feel free to reach out to either Sam or myself, Sam Sadawi or myself, if your municipality is interested.
Sounds good. That is the only question I have from the audience, Dan.
Okay, Chris, thank you so much again for your time and effort in putting together this presentation. I'm sure our audience found it very useful. As a token of the MEA's appreciation, we're going to send both you and Sam a digital gift certificate, but I'll say this, if I was you, I'd ask Sam to give you his digital gift certificate, or at least half of it, since you took on quite the load this morning. And say hi to Sam for me. And thank you very much for your presentation.
Even though it was just me presenting today, it was really a joint presentation between Sam and myself. And we really appreciated being here at MEA. Great conference.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Just a note to the delegates, we're going to take a quick 5-minute break. But before we do that, just like to, well, first of all, I'd like to again thank our platinum sponsor today, Bilterra, for their support of the MEA. And perhaps during the break, this is a good opportunity for you to visit the virtual booths, take a look at what's there, interact with our many sponsors. And we'll see you back at, we'll see you, let's make it 7 minutes. We'll see you back at 10:15 sharp with our final presentation. Welcome back, everyone. It's now my turn to make my presentation this morning. This will be the final presentation. I'm not going to introduce myself. I think I already did. I think you know who I am. But the title of my presentation today is "What has the MEA been up to since the pandemic started?" The last time I made a presentation like this, it was back in 2019 at the South Georgian Bay conference held at the town of the Blue Mountains. And I think many of you that in the audience that were there will fondly remember how well that conference was put on. And I did a presentation there on, I basically provided an update on where we were at with the MEA. Well, I haven't had this opportunity to do that presentation last year because we canceled the conference. But this year, I'm here to give you an update on what we've been doing. Like yourselves, the MEA was no different. We faced very similar challenges with regards to the pandemic. We had to cancel all our in-person board meetings since March of 2020. The last board meeting we had held in person was back in February, just prior to all this starting, February 2020 at the OJRA. We also unfortunately had to cancel the 2020 conference. We were all set to go. We had a contract in our hands with the host hotel, but then realized that this isn't going to happen. So yeah, our revenues were impacted. We needed to adapt just like you all did. One of the things that we did is we moved to our meetings and to an online platform using Zoom. So there was always that sort of consternation at the beginning, and we were kind of worried, well, how's this going to work? We figured that out pretty quick, and we also added on the webinar module for Zoom, and we started hosting some free webinars, and then started offering some of our training courses on the Zoom webinar in the spring of 2020. Overall, what this did is it actually had the benefit of reducing expenses that the MEA incurred, but it allowed us also, in regards to the courses and webinars, it allowed us to maintain our revenue streams. And like I said, there were some technical fears and challenges at first. I'm certainly not the type of person that would be employed by Best Buy as a member of the Geek Squad, but even I was able to figure out some of this stuff, and it's become pretty simple over the course of the last year and learning how to use this technology. We held our AGM last year as a virtual event. This year we held our conference as a virtual event where we're here today. But that was challenging because normally we have a host city, and the host city is good enough to provide an organizing committee. And that could be 8, 10, 12, 20 people. In this year's case, we benefited in that we had established the Conference Advisory Committee, which was a high-level committee that was set up to help host cities plan their conferences on behalf of the MEA, but not actually do the conference planning. Well, we used the Conference Planning Advisory Committee to good effect this year to help us set this up. And as you know, our President's Banquet is a go. We're hosting about 120 people tomorrow night at the Sheraton Toronto Parkway North on Highway 7. If any of you in the audience are attending, I remind you to be there for around 6 p.m. so we can check you in, go through all the COVID protocols, and start our event at around 6:30. Out of all these challenges that the pandemic posed, came successes, quite frankly. Online training that we offered has surpassed our expectations significantly. It's actually been quite a surprise to us how well that took off. And it's caused the board to sort of realize that, we're not saying that training was never one of the MEA's key focus areas, but they realize that how important that is, and that we should be focusing more attention on training as one of our main enterprise areas. And yeah, we've had this pandemic, and you've seen a lot of retirements. I'm sure you know a lot of people over the last year or two that just decided to call it a day and retired. Our membership continues to grow. And as you'll see if you're participating in our AGM later this morning, we've maintained financial stability through all this, and that's extremely important. So the MEA had a strategic plan approved at the end of last year. And I just want to provide you an update on what those items were and where we're at with them. The first one was to develop an annual conference contingency plan for virtual hybrid conference options if the event cannot be scheduled due to pandemic-related issues. Well, we're here today. We planned for that, and we got that plan in place. And we'd be ready to do so in the future. We hope not. But if something like this ever happened again, I think we have a good plan or backup plan so that we can move to a virtual conference platform. One of the things, not that our MCA advisor is planning to go anywhere. Of course, you all know Paul knows. He presented yesterday. Paul plans to continue to assist the MEA in his role as MCA advisor, but we do need to have a succession plan in the event Paul decides to call it a day or wins the lottery. And in that case, we have to have some plan in place so we can, have someone else to be our go-to person. And I'm pleased to report that the board approved a succession plan, and we're working on that as we speak. One of the things we were trying to do, the board was trying to accomplish, was to create more of a formal recognition policy. We're all very thankful to the efforts of our volunteers. Without our volunteers, the MEA wouldn't exist. But we wanted to have, the board wanted to have more of a formal plan in place to recognize volunteers and do a better job of it, quite frankly. So I can tell you that that effort is underway. We're still working on it, but we hope to have that formalized in 2022. Another thing, and this comes out of what I said on the previous slide, was to develop a broader range of MEA webinar-based training programs by considering additional areas of study and identifying qualified experienced course facilitators from our membership. That's a medium-term item. We are already thinking about turning our OPS 101, well, not turning our OPS 101 course, but morphing it into a 201 course, perhaps on general conditions of contract. So that's one thing we're looking at, but we also want to identify other training areas that the membership would be interested in and see if we can put on additional training programs for our membership. So we'll be reaching out to the membership in the near future, asking you about that and what your thoughts are on that. And if any of you have any particular thoughts, please let me know, drop me an email. Well, another strategic planning item was to implement a new committee that we were at the time we're calling Designating PEngines at Municipalities, whose mandate would address the benefits of professional engineers working at municipalities and to liaise with various association, risk management and legal professionals. I'm pleased to announce that this is underway. In fact, the committee was created. They've renamed themselves to the Municipal Infrastructure Enhancement Committee. That's led, there's a number of people on that committee, and they're doing some work in the background. So that item is well underway. Another item was in the event the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks implements a regulation for the MCEA to develop the current MCEA document. we would like to develop a plan to ensure that the MEA maintains its leading status in the municipal engineering industry regarding the MCEA, and also to ensure the MEA's financial sustainability in this business enterprise. You know, the MEA, you know, I said earlier, nonprofit organization, and when I talked about sponsors, we invest a lot of money into maintaining the MCEA document, and you know, we need to ensure financial sustainability going forward. And so if the ministry ever does go to a RAG, we'd still like to maintain companion guides. We'd still like to deliver the training programs, etc. So that is something that we're thinking about. It's underway. On a long-term goal, which was always in the back of our minds, is to develop an optional business plan for the management of OPS Muni, should the MEA need to take on a larger role in this area. Another one is to develop a corporate membership model structure. We parked that because of COVID. We just didn't think that was the right time to look at this. So this is essentially, rather than having a mix of corporate members and individual members, we should just go more to a model like what the OJRA uses. It certainly would make administration of memberships a lot easier for the MEA. And in what you see here at the bottom of the screen, I just want to note that we currently do have a 2022 strategic plan drafted. It's being finalized. Hopefully the board will approve that at their next meeting. And once it's approved, we'll be posting it to the website. I said earlier that our membership continues to grow. As of today, we have 990 members. And I think if we went back and looked at my presentation from 2019, I think we were in the area of about 850. So we are growing. We have another 5 coming in for approval at tomorrow's board meeting. So we'll be at 995. We're so close to 1,000. We're excited that when we're going to hit that 1,000 milestone. I can remind you all that the highest percentage of members comes from our larger corporate members. I don't think I have to read these cities out. We all know who they are. But we've been getting new members from other places. So proud to announce that we now have 11 members from the Ontario Clean Water Agency. And there was a presentation yesterday from them with regards to asset management. So I think it's important that other agencies who are eligible to be members participate and network with our members, and even participate in committees. We've got members now from various conservation authorities across the province, and we even have some from Metrolinx, though I'm still working on that. There's big potential here to get many members from Metrolinx involved. They do a lot of work in municipalities. And it would be, I think, it's a great idea to have them on board as well. MTO only has 1 member, and that's something we would like to change. And there's also big potential there, and we're going to be working on that. And like I said on the last slide, the corporate membership versus the current model is something we'd like to review, but it's parked for now. So, as I said, we're continuing to grow, and that's a good thing because there is truth and strength in numbers. The more of us, the stronger we are as an association. The new committees, I mentioned one about the PENG committee, now called the Municipal Infrastructure Enhancement Committee. We launched several new committees since the Blue Mountain Conference in 2019. We now have an active transportation committee, smart cities committee, climate change committee, and an asset management committee. And I've mentioned the Municipal Infrastructure Enhancement Committee already, as well as the MEA Conference Advisory Committee. Thank God we set that up, not knowing not knowing the pandemic was coming. That really saved us in terms of getting ready for this virtual conference. And again, thanks to all the volunteers who have stepped up to staff these committees. MCA amendment. Well, Paul provided a presentation yesterday, and you'll see here my first note is getting close. Well, we think we are. We've been cooperating with the MECP since the spring of 2019. It's been a long time. When they finally approve the amendments, we need to republish the manual as soon as possible. There will be a new look to the manual, and I could advise you that the board will be viewing the pricing structure of the new manual. So that's both the digital and hard copy versions. And this is related to the, the financial sustainability of the MEA. We need to ensure that we can continue putting the resources into the MCEA amendments in the future, or commenting on a potential new regulation. And we need to be ready with a series of webinars or workshops to advise the industry, members and industry professionals on the amendments that are coming. So that's all ready to go. We're just waiting for the sort of the green light from the minister that the amendments will be approved. The introduction to the MCA course, it will continue as we go forward. That's been a very successful initiative by the MEA. We don't know yet if or when we'll return to in-class teaching, or if we just continue with the webinar format. I think we'll be asking students, what their thoughts are and the best way to deliver that. OPS, marketing and promotion. This is something that is very important. As you saw in Arup's presentation earlier this week, we need to make sure that more municipalities are using Ontario provincial standards. You'd be surprised to find out how many member municipalities in Ontario do not use provincial standards. Some not even aware that they exist. So we are working with selected OPS advisory board members on how to best promote the benefits of OPS to municipalities. We think we need to do a better job to say this is why it's important for you to do this. It benefits you. So we've developed a very preliminary terms of reference, but it's not approved yet. And we want to know what our membership thinks about this as well. So I think we've surveyed you in the past. I think there'll be more surveys. We're thinking about things like articles in various publications, and we're looking for support from other organizations. The OPS 101 course that we've offered, as Arup mentioned the other day, we've held 3, and we've had about 150 or 160 people in total participate. And we're getting quite a mix of students from all aspects of the municipal engineering industry. It shows that there is this demand for more information on OPS. Well, I'm not going to say it right now. Salim will include it, remarks in his concluding remarks at the end of the day, which is coming up shortly after my presentation. But we will be, I can tell you, we will be having an in-person conference next year. And Salim will note that, and we'll make the announcement also during the AGM and as well tomorrow evening. So we're looking forward to going back to an in-person conference. And that concludes my presentation. And I know I'm moderating myself here, Amanda. I know you're in the background, and if there are any questions, please let me know and I'll do my best to answer them.
There's one very important question posed right now, and that is, where do I buy a copy of the MEA AGM 2021 soundtrack?
Are we referring to the soundtrack for the of the highway?
That's what I think. That's what I think it is.
Well, apparently it's on YouTube. We grabbed that from YouTube, and apparently Amin tells me, because I actually, people emailed me about this during the conference. Where is this highway? Apparently it's in Romania. So sorry if we disappointed anyone, thinking this was the 407 or even the Trans-Canada in Alberta going into the Rockies. But no, apparently it's from Romania.
Well, I think it's a special shout out and thanks to Amin for being able to put that together and giving us something enjoyable while we waited for others at their nature breaks.
Yeah, I want to thank Amin for all his hard work. In that, yeah, I've learned a lot of this technology, but if it wasn't for Amin, I think we would have been in a lot of trouble. He's behind the scenes admitting speakers, and he worked on learning this CVent platform, which we purchased earlier this year. And yeah, it's been a good experience for all of us, but special kudos to Amin for all the hard work behind the scenes. And is there any other questions, Amanda?
There are no other questions, Dan.
Okay, so that concludes my presentation. I'm not going to send myself a digital gift card. I don't need one. I benefit as being an employee from the MEA. So that's my thanks to myself for putting on this presentation on behalf of the MEA. I'd like to turn the microphone to Salim Alibai, the MEA's president, for about another hour, and have him provide concluding remarks. Are you there, Salim?
Yes, I am, Dan. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. As Dan mentioned, I'm Salim Alibai, and I'm currently the MEA president until the AGM. And then my day job is I'm a director of capital planning and delivery in York Region's Transportation Services Department. I'm the last person to speak today, and all I want to say is that I think we had a great conference. As Dan mentioned, this is the first time we use this software. And while you always have to keep your fingers crossed when you're working with technology, the board and I had full confidence in, both our staff. Niema, that you just heard, our member services coordinator that's working in the background with all the technology and all, organizing everything. And then Cozy, our executive director. They were all helped with, staff, not staff, but board members and other individuals that have organized these conferences before. So I'll just mention them. Amanda Froese from the town of Saugeen Shores, David Mihango from the Regional Municipality of York, my colleague, Matthew Medema, City of Thunder Bay, Reg Rusman from the City of Guelph, and Saidur Rahman of the City of Toronto. So again, thanks to the organizing committee and staff for putting up a good show. I also want to thank all our presenters. Everyone kept to their times. The topics were interesting, they were varied and of relevance to our work today. Everything from asset management to asphalt, concrete, nuclear technologies, pipes, updates to MCA, OPS, even about moving a locomotive. So a variety of topics. And so thank you again to our presenters. And as we've advised before, we'll be sending each of the presenters a digital gift certificate as a token of the MEA's appreciation. I also want to thank all of our attendees for participating in the various sessions. Each attendee will receive an email denoting their professional development hours that they can use for training hours for peak or PMT accreditation. Finally, I would like to thank all our bronze, silver, gold, and the 3 platinum sponsors, Concrete Ontario, Advanced Drainage Systems, and Builterra, for their support of this conference. As Dan mentioned this morning, there's still time to visit the virtual booths, and even after the conference is over. So next in the program, we have MEA's annual general meeting that will start at 11. And just to note that that meeting is only open to MEA members. And MEA members will need to leave this session and log on the attendee hub to the AGM session. And as I mentioned, it will start promptly at 11. For those who plan to attend tomorrow's President's Banquet, we look forward to hosting you and having an evening of fun. So to end, the Odyssey continues, and we look forward to another year of eventful experiences and adventures. And we hope to see you next year for an in-person conference and AGM. I'm very pleased to announce that the City of Toronto has graciously agreed to host us next year. And then the following year in 2023, the County of Lambton and the City of Sarnia together will host us. So we'll look forward to those two events. This concludes the conference. Thanks, everybody. And for those who are coming tomorrow, we'll see you there. Thank you
Salim,
again.
Salim, I have one question that came up with your presentation. Kyle Vandermeer is asking about how long the conference sessions will be made available on the website for attendees.
I have the answer for that, Salim.
Okay.
I just got the answer a little while ago. So my understanding is the recorded sessions will be available on this CVent platform for a period of 90 days. So if you've missed a session or you missed a particular presentation, you can go on and view it just by logging back onto the attendee hub tomorrow, next week, a month from now.
And then the slides will be available for the
Yeah. The
Your
slides.
website.
Yeah, the slides will be posted. It's just a matter of us collecting all the slides and loading them onto our website. But yes, all the presentations will be individually stored on our website for infinity.
Yep. All right.
Thank you.
All right. So thanks again, everybody. Bye now.